No.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Holly Shippers. I'm manager of seasonal at Sunnyside Nursery. Thank you for sharing some of your time with us today. Today we're talking about cool weather vegetables. Cool weather veggies can take roughly down to 25 degrees in temperature. I like to classify them or categorize them as annual, perennial, and biennial. Annual are crops that you'll get that crop for that season, but then the plant's done. Perennial, you'll get perennial, the plant will come back every year. You get a crop off of it every year, such as artichokes and asparagus, to name a couple. You can also do the biennial, which are plants that last a couple of years. The first year, you'll get the fruit or the vegetable off of it. The second year, it will flower and seed. That seed will then be the crop for the next season. Let's see. Next thing, where do you want to put your veggie garden? You're going to put it in the ground. Are you going to put it in containers? Are you going to put it in raised beds? We get all of the above. And questions on how to do all of the above. If you're going to put your vegetables in the ground, you want to make sure you have enough light, but not too much light for cool weather. Determine if you're going to go in the ground. I would recommend you put compost. If you don't do your own compost, then we do carry an Evestone organic compost. The compost has chicken manure, bat guano, seabird guano, worm castings, alfalfa, and kelp, to name some key things. That there's more in it than that, but those are some key things I want to discuss. You can either do the compost or the soil booster. The soil booster also has chicken manure, bat guano, seabird guano, and kale, worm castings, and beneficial microbes. Those are very important. I'll tell you why in a little bit. If you're doing a container, I personally do containers now. I use the Ultimate. The Ultimate is a great container soil. It has bat guano, seed guano, or seabird guano, worm castings, and microbes as well. Very important, and again, I'll talk about that later. Raised bed. We've got a great raised bed product here as well, organic through Evestone. Chicken manure, worm castings, microbes, as well as mycorrhizae. And we'll discuss that in a bit too. Once you decide how you're going to garden, you got the soil prepped, what you want to add to the soil, start with some fertilizer. Since we're going to plant in this a little later, I'm going to add some right now. I don't measure. I've been doing it for a lot of years. I just toss it in. It's an organic. It's not going to harm or burn the plants. So let's get some fertilizer in there. And you also want to I put azomite. I recommend azomite. Azomite is trace minerals. Trace minerals will help enhance the flavor of all your edibles. I started using this about 10 years ago. It makes a huge, huge difference in flavor. Everybody I recommend it to comes back to me and says, oh my, it really is great stuff. So I'm going to put some of that in. That's going to enhance flavors as well as help your plant draw up more and store more nutrients. Very important for plants as well. Now, normally I put Dolomite lime in. It has calcium and magnesium. Calcium is to help create good, strong cells, to create a good, healthy, strong plant. Magnesium is to help with the photosynthesis. Oh, that's a big word. That which basically helps with the chlorophyll, is what helps keep the color of their foliage, what their color is. We currently are out of this, other than this one special box. We will get more in next week. So if you can't get the calcium in from this, I would recommend you use oyster shell. that is a calcium additive. Very important you have calcium in there, okay? Let's see, what did we discuss about the soils? Everything kind of had something in common. We had bat guano, we had seabird guano, we had worm castings, and we had chicken manure. It's whatever you call it, doo-doo, poo, caca, it's all manure. It's very important for your plants. It provides nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Very, very important for plants. Kelp, we discussed kelp. Kelp is an additive to your soil that will help replenish nutrients as the plants are drawing nutrients up. Alfalfa, very important as well. Alfalfa has proteins and microbes in them that will help break down the compost that then in turn will create more nutrients for your plants. So you always have something going on in the soil. Let's see. I feel like I'm missing something. Well, let's get to mixing, and then we'll talk about plants. And it might come to me. Things do come to me eventually. So we're going to get to mixing this. I suppose I should add the calcium, since we do want to be successful with these veggies. I used to plant in the ground when I was growing up. My grandparents always had a huge area that they would do veggie gardening. And of course, we were always out and about with them. And then I grew up and got older, and I had a huge patch of my own. We've been in this house for about 30 years, and then about 12, 15 years ago, I suddenly didn't have the light where my huge patch was. So the only place I was ever to do this was in my driveway. So I have lots of containers on tables in my driveway. So what I would do is I like to play with my plants. I want to kind of do them like you would do a flower container. I want some texture. I want things that work well together. So right here I've got peas. This one is a sugar, which one did I grab? Sugar Snap. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous pea. It's thick, it's juicy, it's crisp, and it's sweet. That's why it's got that sugar in its name. It's a delicious one. You want to put that one in the middle of your pot. Make sure you tamp it down. Now, the lettuce and the peas take a little of, they take the same lighting, they take the same watering. What I do with mine, because peas don't like a hot area, and lettuce can handle a lower light area, I have large Japanese maples that I use in my driveway to help me give kind of a filtered light for those who don't want it really hot and bright. So you just kind of put the lettuces around the edge. This particular one is called red oak leaf. Red oak leaf is a nice, gentle, mild romaine. It's a beautiful color, nice texture. So you put a couple of those around. Make sure you tamp them in, meaning you're putting those the soil down tight around the roots, getting some of that air out. Just kind of mix it up. Now, I kind of like container gardening because I'm standing up the whole time. I'm not weeding like I always had to. It's I'm quite comfortable with it now. So this particular one is Tropicana. Tropicana is a nice crisp leaf. It has a good, bold, strong, delicious flavor to it. Now you can see I'm kind of mixing up different lettuces. I like to have a mixture. If I'm making a salad or a sandwich, I want to have a mixture. I want to have all kinds of flavors and textures going on in there. So I'm just kind of doing every other one. Do one more. Now your pea is going to want something to climb on. Now when peas grow, they send out these tendrils, and in slow motion, they're just going to keep spinning and growing and spinning and growing until they find something to grab onto. And they grab onto it, and that's what they're going to climb up. So let's give them something to grab onto. So you can decorate your pots. Why not have fun with it? We'll get this in there, and then that will have something to grow on. So the lettuce will fill in and kind of spill over. The pea will grow up, and they'll all get on very well together. Again, remember, peas don't like a really hot area. They need to be a little cool. So like I said, the way I do it is I have Japanese maples in my driveway in big decorative pots, and I kind of scooch it behind that. So that's a beautiful plant, beautiful pot. Let's talk plants. That's what you want, right? You want plants. This is Lettuce All-Star Gourmet Mix. This is a wonderful mix. There are many wonderful mixes. I just didn't want to talk about every single one. This is one of my favorites. This one has a little bit of a spiciness to it, but not like burn your mouth. It's a gentle one, and it's beautiful. You can see how there's different mixes of lettuces in there. Get a little closer. There we go. See all the different ones in there? It's a wonderful little mix, very popular, great for sandwiches, salads, or just grazing while you're watering your veggie garden. It's a wonderful, wonderful mix. Here we have, oh, like we talked, the red oak leaf. Isn't that beautiful? That is a beautiful, beautiful color. And it's just going to get more beautiful as it matures. Again, great in salads, in sandwiches, or just grazing. This is Butter Crunch. Butter Crunch kind of makes a very loose, spongy kind of, well, not squishy like the foliage is, but, you know, airy head. It's very, very sweet, very buttery. That's the name Butter Crunch. Another very popular one for salads and sandwiches and grazing. Just a wonderful, wonderful. This is one of my favorites. This is a really, I love this one. This is called Red Deer Tongue. It's a beautiful, buttery, nutty flavored lettuce. The reason it's called deer tongue is, I don't know if you're familiar with deer's tongues, but it's very long. So these blades are going to be about that long and about that wide, like a deer's tongue is. It's just a wonderful, wonderful flavor. Beautiful, unusual looking lettuce because of the shape of those leaves. Again, great in salads and sandwiches or just by itself. And yes, they do get bigger. These are just some little starts. Here I have another, well, it doesn't have its tag, but this is another gourmet, another mix. And I don't remember which mix this was. I've got a few different mixes, but I grabbed this one because I like the flavor, so it must have been another one that had a little spice to it. Adds a little extra flavor. This has a little more texture to it here too. Different combination of wonderful lettuces. And it's nice to get them in packs because, you know, lettuce you want to be able to enjoy over and over and over. Lettuce will have its crop time, so you want to plant it like within 2 weeks of each other. So as you're using one crop, another crop is becoming ready for consuming. Here's another lettuce. This is another one called mesclun, another spicy. This one's got all kinds of stuff going on in there. It's a wonderful, wonderful combination of mesclun, of lettuce. Again, good in salads, in sandwiches. It just adds that extra oomph. Really nice. Here we have Chioggia Guardsmark beets. I love this one. This one has, I don't know if you can see the picture. See how it's, whoops, it's like rings, little ringlets. This one is extremely flavorful, kind of peppery. You can see which direction I go with flavor. It's a beautiful peppery, it's a wonderful, wonderful beet. I love it. Okay, here we have Detroit Red. Detroit Red is going to be a sweet beet. It's going to be a red, of course, red beet. These are just young little guys here. You can see the beautiful red stem on it. These are great as pickling, steaming. You can also stir fry them. Very high in antioxidants. Detroit Red beet. Here we have Touchstone Gold. Touchstone Gold is kind of a reddish orange on the outside, but when you cut into it, it is gold. It is one of the sweetest beets. It's very pretty and it's very delicious. Great, again, for pickling, stir fries, steaming, high in antioxidants. Very, very wonderful beet, Touchstone beet. Here we have Broccoli Arcadia. Broccoli Arcadia is a nice tight head. It is a very flavorful head. It's a sweet head. It's great in, some people have roasted it. You have to do that very carefully for not burning, but it can be very flavorful. I like to steam mine and put cheddar cheese on it. It's delicious that way. There's also a salad that you can make it raw, make a raw salad of it that has grapes and raisins. It's just a delicious salad. There's all kinds of things you can do with broccoli. Broccoli Arcadia is a really, really nice broccoli. Here we have Green Magic. Green Magic is another very large firm head broccoli. This one kind of has a buttery flavor to it. Let's see if you can see the close-up of the head. This is a delicious broccoli. Very, very nice, full-flavored broccoli. Here we have Destiny. Destiny is another sweet broccoli. Broccolis are very, very popular. A lot of people really like their broccoli. Another big, tight, beautiful, firm head. This is a delicious, sweet broccoli. Broccoli Destiny. Let's see. Oh, this is another favorite of mine. This is a nice, sweet cauliflower. I like it because it's orange. It's an orange cauliflower. And when you cook it, it gets even oranger. It's called cauliflower cheddar. That's the orange. It's a beautiful, full-flavored, sweet cauliflower. Nice, tight head. And it's fun. Cauliflower cheddar. Here we have Snow Crown. Snow Crown is a typical white cauliflower. It is a full flavored sweet cauliflower. It is a tight head cauliflower. Very good in flavor. You can use this, my husband makes an Indian dish that it's just loaded with garlic and herbs, and it's just Oh, and he roasts it. So you can roast it, you can steam it, you can put cheese on it. This is another wonderful cauliflower. Snow Crown is the name. Let's see, there was one broccoli I forgot to mention. Let's see if I can find it, because I really wanted to mention it. Broccolini, we're getting back to the broccolis. I forgot this one. Broccolini. Broccolini is one of the narrow ones. It's a narrow stem, it's a small head, but broccolini, you can eat everything. You can eat the stem, the foliage, the head. It's a little bit bitter, but that can be delicious. So broccolini is a great addition to your broccoli taste. Again, a little bit bitter, but you can work with that in spices and it'd be delicious. You can eat every bit of it. Here we have Brussels sprouts. This one is Jade Cross. Jade Cross is a nice large Brussels sprout or a little mini cabbage. I've been told this is a really good one. I'm sorry, but I am not a Brussels sprout lady. But I have friends who have grown this and they say it is wonderful. Remember with broccoli, or I mean, sorry, with Brussels sprouts, they need the cold to bring those sugars out and they become even more flavorful. This is Brussels sprouts Jade Cross. Nice, beautiful, healthy plants. Right here we have, let's talk peas. This one is Sweet Horizon. Sweet Horizon is a snow pea. Snow peas are the flat ones that you use for stir fry. This has a good, sweet, full-bodied flavor to it. It is a high-yielding pea. Again, pea Sweet Horizon. This one is pea Sugar Flash. Sugar Flash is a snap. I love this one. I love all the snaps I bring in. I'm a snap fan and a snack fan. This one is another juicy, sweet pea. You crunch into it and it's just juicy and flavorful. Peas just don't make it into my kitchen. I snack on these as I'm watering my vegetable patch. I love it, or vegetable bowls. Here's another one. This is called pea premium. Premium is a shelling pea. So you're not going to take this off the plant and just put it in your mouth. You're going to take the little peas out of the encasing. And then those are what you're going to eat. Very full flavored, delicious. How can you go wrong with a pea, right? This is called pea premium, a shelling pea. Here we have a super sugar snap, another very delicious, juicy, crunchy pea. You can see it's starting to get the little tendrils. So it's getting ready. Oh, it's reaching onto itself right there. So it's trying to find something to grow on. It's ready to go. That's pea super sugar snap. Here I have dwarf gray sugar. Dwarf gray sugar is an extremely sweet snap that can also be treated as a snow. So when it's still flat, before it gets thick and juicy, you can treat it as a snow or let it mature into a snap. So you kind of get 2 in 1 there. And it only gets about 2 feet tall. So dwarf gray sugar pea, a combo snap and snow. Here's one that is an Oregon sugar pod. Oregon sugar pod is a snow pea. Again, good for stir fries. And this one here, the gray sugar, if you're treating it as a snow pea, it's a juicy snow pea. So it has more, it's not as sinewy as if you're trying to eat a regular snow pea. But again, snow peas, good for stir fries. This one is Oregon sugar pod. Here we have, oh, kohlrabi. This is the white kohlrabi. It's gorgeous. It has pure white ribs to it with the green foliage. This is a very sweet kohlrabi. Very delicious kohlrabi. This is kohlrabi white, Vienna white. This one is one of my favorites. This is kohlrabi winter. Winter is going to be very sweet, very buttery. Again, has that beautiful white ribbing with the green foliage. One of my favorites. You can eat it just raw and crunchy. You can stir fry it. It's just a wonderful kohlrabi. Kohlrabi winter. Here we've got pak choi bopak. Bopak, bok choy, or pak choi. You'll see that there's one that's spelled with a B and one spelled with a P. They are the same thing. It just depends on what region of China you're in on whether it's going to be bok or pak. So this is pak choi bopak. Bopak is a fruity flavored, very sweet and fruity flavored kohlrabi. Great for, pak choi. Great for stir fries or just eating fresh. Just delicious. You can also pickle it. I use it in stir fries a lot, but you can pickle it too. It's a beautiful pak choi. Here is another one. This is joy choy. Pak choi, joy choy. That's a hard one to say. That's a bit of a tongue twister. It's a sweet, flavorful pak choi. Again, used for stir fries, eating raw, or pickling. It's just delicious. Beautiful white ribs. Sorry, not on this one. But it is a nice, sweet pak choi or bok choy, whatever you want to call it. It's a beautiful one. It's hard to tell at this age, but they'll grow up and be beautiful. You know, the swan story. Over here we have, we're going to head into cabbages. This is Savoy King. Savoy King is one of the more excellent cabbages. It is a green cabbage. It will have a ruffled outer foliage to it with a solid inner cabbage head. It's got a wonderful, excellent, delicious flavor to it. It's a nice firm cabbage. This is cabbage Savoy King. My grandmother would grow cabbage heads this big. It was unbelievable. She loved growing her cabbage. I never noticed her doing anything with them. No, I think she just liked to brag about her cabbage rights there. This one is Emerald Cross. Emerald Cross is a kind more of a common cabbage. It's a very smooth foliage cabbage, a nice solid head, excellent flavor. Cabbage Emerald Cross. Here we have cabbage Ruby Perfection. This is going to be a red cabbage. Beautiful foliage. See all that purple and pink stems, the ribbings. Isn't that gorgeous? Kind of a blue-green foliage. So it's not just about what comes out of it edible-wise. It's the foliage and texture. Just play around with them like we did with this container here. Just make sure everything that goes in the same pot needs the same lighting and watering conditions. This is Cabbage Ruby Perfection. Great for coleslaw, great for eating raw, very sweet in flavor. It's a beautiful cabbage. Here's another one that I love. This is Ace Cabbage, Acre Cabbage. I love that foliage. Another deep purple foliage. It's going to have a purpley red head to it, a nice firm head. They're not going to be huge, but they're a beautiful firm head, very sweet flavor. Coleslaw and eating raw. This is cabbage red acre. Here we have Savoy Ace. Savoy Ace is a green cabbage with a kind of a white interior to it. This is kind of a typical what you'd get in a grocery store style one. Very full flavor, good for coleslaws, eating raw. This is Savoy Ace cabbage. I love me some good coleslaw. Here we have kale starboard. Kale starboard is one of the sturdier kales. As it matures, those stems are going to get really thick. Can be used as making chips, kale chips. I don't know if any of you have done that before. They can be delicious. You can also use it in soups. I've done that before. You can juice it. I've juiced it. It's got lots of vitamins to it. It's a delicious kale. I've had it in salads as well. This is kale starboard. Kind of a bluey green. I love the ruffles too. Another nice texture to add. Here we have red Russian kale. There's a red Russian kale and a white Russian kale. These are some of the more popular kales. They've got a much smoother foliage to them. Great vitamin benefits. Great for juicing. Great for soups and salads. This one would not do the chips as well as the starboard. You can kind of see the difference, how thick and almost leathery the starboard is, and how kind of more delicate the red Russian as well as the white Russian would be. Here we have collards. I think collards are a little bit misunderstood. You know, they're very popular in the South, but we don't do it very often here. Collard greens are delicious. Give yourself a chance with making collard greens. They are delicious. I had my first collard greens, maybe 5 years ago. And I loved it. I loved it so much. It went great with brisket. Good flavor. Okay, mustard greens. Mustard greens are just what they are. They taste kind of mustardy, spicy and mustardy. I love adding these to salads and to my sandwiches. I even just graze off of them as well. I just love mustards. There's so many different kinds of mustards out there. This one is a very nice, light, spicy one. Green, there's red ones. There's some really delicious ones out there. Celery. I like to do celery. The celery I grow is Utah. Utah is a biennial. Remember what those did? Those produced the first year, and the second year is going to shoot up seed for the next year's crop. So mine produced last year. It kept its foliage all winter. I just cut it back, and now it's flushing out new growth and getting ready to set my next year's seeds. Very good flavor. Oh, my husband and I just love, it's such a robust, fresh, juicy, bright flavor. We just love it. Big celery. It's really big celery. I use the tops for salads. I throw it in salads. I throw it in soups, chowders, and then we just eat it. It's just delicious. I love it. It's a delicious one. Another one that we carry is, this is kind of a fun one. This is a peppermint stick celery. This is a fun one. The stems, the stalks are going to be pink and green striped. This is a very sweet, flavorful celery, and it's just a fun celery. Celery peppermint stick. Let's see. Well, we haven't talked about pollination. There's open pollination and there's hybrid pollination. Open pollination is when you get help with animals, critters, bees, going from one flower, dispersing pollination from one flower to the other. You can get it by having animals brush up against it and dispersing that way, where it falls off of them onto other flowers. The wind can carry it. You can shake it. And then there's hybrid. Hybrid pollination is when people do it. They get their little brushes out or their little Q-tips out and they go from one to the other and they're manipulating it. So that would be called hybrid pollination. You'll also be getting pests. It's nature, it's what happens. If you've got pests, there are organic products to use for your pests. The most common would be aphids, various worms, various beetles. You could also end up getting fungal issues. They have septoria set in. Again, there are organic solutions to those problems. And when you first notice them happening, come on in and we'll give you something to take care of that before it gets out of control. Don't wait too long for any of your pests or diseases. Okay, I think we're probably ready for questions.
Can you talk some more about pests and diseases, like common ones, for instance, like slugs, or, you know, common things that you see and what we should do about them?
Slugs. This is a nice organic product called Sluggo. Sluggo you put down all around the plant area. The slug is going to crawl on it. And unlike other slug killers in the past, it won't just kill them instantly where you have the goo and the yuck right there. They will crawl away with it, and then they will no longer be. It will work wet. So as long as you see it there, it's still working. Once you start seeing areas where it's been taken away, just add some more. That should do the job. You want to make sure there aren't leaves leaning over it though, where the slug can climb up that and avoid all the sluggo. You want to make sure that you're looking for those bridges. So Sluggo would be great for that. If you have like aphids or bugs, various bugs, spider mites, any of those, Captain Jack's is an organic. That's one that we use is Captain Jack's. You can also use neem oil. Just straight neem oil would work. I don't have a neem oil to show right now. We do have also insecticidal soap, which is also an organic product for organic use. And that would also be for spider mites, aphids, whitefly, thrip. And 8. 8 is another product that can be used, but not so organic. But it takes care of a lot of stuff. And it doesn't have to be used on vegetables. If you have septoria setting in, which is when it gets too wet, which happens in the spring for us, it's when the yellow spots start and then they're dark in the middle. That's septoria. We've got copper for that right here. This is what I use. This has a shelf life. This is an organic solution. Quite often what I do before any issues happen is I give plants a pre-spray. So whether it's a copper pre-spray or a neem oil pre-spray, I do that as they're growing before they bloom, just to help prevent them from happening. It's not 100% guarantee, but it can help a lot preventing it from happening. And this one has a shelf life, so you can mix it and it'll still be good, you know, days later. Anything else?
Can you use copper tape for slugs? Is that a possible option?
You know, that's an old-fashioned way. It can still be used. It worked then. It can work now. I think it's more harder to find. But yeah, you can do that as well.
Somebody asked if you can use thyme oil for organic pest control or any sort of perhaps essential oils that might help to keep things organic.
Things like that are going to be more for keeping rodents away. Rosemary, lavender, mint, thyme, that's going to be more for rodents.
Okay. We have quite a few people that are new to this, to growing their own food.
Like that.
Yeah, we do. And so can you give us any tips in terms of, you know, maybe some bulletproof veggies that they can try, or just some, you know, common tips for if you're brand new to this game, what are some good things to follow?
If you're brand new to this game, I would suggest, if you like salad, just make a simple salad bowl, a mixed salad bowl for your patio table. If you could just give that a, it's all easy, keep evenly moist. Don't let your lettuce dry out, but don't keep it sopping wet. Just want to keep it evenly moist. The reason you don't want it to dry out is because it can become bitter. But these are fun little tabletop gardens to get yourself started. Give yourself a simple chore. Don't do too much at once or you're going to get overwhelmed.
Gotcha. So all of these things are cool season, you know, obviously spring and fall, but how much sun do they really need? I mean,
things like your lettuces, your celery, your spinach. I wish I had spinach to show you, but it hasn't come in yet. Those can take a lower light or a filtered light. Just remember they're cool weather because they don't respond well in warm weather. So you don't want it to be in a hot blazing side of the house where the house is radiating 15 more degrees onto them. So you want to keep them cool.
Can you talk about raised beds in terms of, do you need to, if you, like, we've had questions about galvanized beds or plastic, are there things that you should be concerned about? Do you need to clean them before you start planting in them?
Galvanized are fine, as well as plastic. With wood, you want to make sure it's not treated with something that will leach into the soil that would then leach into the food. And I grow mine in both the ceramic, I don't know if you can see that over there, the ceramic, because my driveway's full of cobalt, so I like that. And I also have the big plastic tubs, the big nursery tubs.
And what about if you already have something established? What's the best way to refresh your soil every season, or, you know, go about getting it ready again?
You always want to add more nutrients. So if it's in the ground, like we discussed earlier, the planting compost or the soil booster, those are excellent products for the soil in the ground. I personally replenish my pots every year with the Ultimate. I just want to start out fresh with the Ultimate. And then for the raised bed, you can add more raised bed in there. And then you're also adding things like your fertilizers and your azomite and your lime or calcium.
And somebody asked the difference, can you use steer manure or chicken manure? Is one better than the other?
They're both equally as good, but chicken manure can be hot, so it has to age or it'll burn. So with chicken manure, it needs to be composted and aged.
Okay. What about growing things, starting them from seed versus starts? And what do you have tips, or one way or the other, which way to go?
starting from seed is a fine way to go. Starting, you know, just start them in the house or a greenhouse, or you can start them, well, now you can start them, the temperatures are getting up there. You just want to wait for outside seeding for when the ground temperature is up. Now should be, we're right on the borderline of that, should be enough. If you want to be sure, then start them in the house. That they typically take about 2 weeks. It'll tell you on the package the germination time. The other advantage to having them in starts is you've got that 2 or 3 week head start.
And if you wanted to start from seed, how far ahead of the game do you need to do that? Or
again, it depends on the temperature, what time of the year it is, the temperature outside, because you're still wanting to be able to put them out, and then the germination days.
Excellent. Can you talk more about perennial veggies and kind of what those are and how you might treat those a little differently, or if you even do?
Perennial veggies, like I said, are artichoke, asparagus. You can also do rhubarb. They come. What you do is I just give them a winter mulch, just to, you know, a blanket for the winter time. They're like anything that's perennial. They will come right back. They will produce for you, and that's with each season. You treat them just like you would when you're prepping the ground. You prep the ground again with compost, with all the fertilizer, the lime, the you know, the other one. And you just work that into the root area.
Can we go back just a quick second? We're talking about temperatures and how these are cool season versus warm. So do you have some sort of, you know, kind of degree range that you think about when talking about cool versus warm?
Well, for the soil temperature for cool, around 45, 50 degrees. You also want to make sure you're adding moisture to your seed. That is going to eventually make the casing of the seed bloat and become softer, so the seed can be able to pop through. The plant can be able to pop through. Yeah, you don't want to sow your seeds when it's still heavy frosts out.
And when do you know when is a good time to take your seeds from growing indoors to planting them outside?
You want to do it when they're, you know, about 3 inches tall. You can also let them go longer if you need to pot them up into gallon size. That's doable. I know one year we ended up doing tomatoes. We had to move them, relocating our where we lived, and we had to just keep potting them up until it was time to move, and then we put them in the ground.
Gotcha. Can you talk a little bit about, sorry, let me get to my questions. There's some good questions going on back here. Yeah. Can you talk about watering, you know, specifically like how often you should do it? Is there a, you know, kind of a finger soil test that you should do?
Well, again, we discussed the fungal septoria, which is very common in veggies, also powdery mildew, and that is typically caused from overwatering. If you're in a container, it depends on the size of the container on how often you will water. Just remember, if you have a large container, that's a lot of soil that's kept wet for a long time, so you wouldn't be watering over and over and over. It also depends on the time of the season on how often you would water. I do my gardening in 15 and 20 gallon containers. In the heat of the summer, I have to water every other day. Before that, in the spring, every few days, and it all depends on how much rain we're getting. So it's kind of for a container, you can easily tell. If it's wet in the hole underneath, you're good. In the ground's another story. If it's raining here, it doesn't necessarily get deep down into the roots. So you kind of want to get an idea how that area drains with the ground. If it's a not as well draining area, it's going to stay moist for a longer amount of time.
Can you talk about companion planting? What veggies or flowers and veggies like to go next to each other? Are there things you should avoid?
Some things don't do well with others. For any of the lettuces, go well with the peas. You can do lettuce and kale. You can do kale and cabbage. Tomatoes are the ones that are picky. They don't like to have any kind of a companion with them. They're just not happy that way. So but tomatoes are warm weather, so we don't need to worry about that until then.
What about talking about, you mentioned hybrid versus open pollinated and all of that. Are they all, there's some kind of myths out there about hybrids aren't good for your health. Is that true? You know, what's kind of the advantages over organic versus not?
It depends on if they're doing something other than the cross-pollination. Usually when they're doing the hybrid style of pollinating, they're doing other things. Again, it depends on the situation, but it's all man done, human done.
So it's not unhealthy?
It depends on what they're doing.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Okay. Are there certain space requirements you should worry about when doing veggies, or, you know, specifically like perennial veggies?
For perennial, you definitely want to allow them to have enough space because they're going to keep growing for you. For things like the lettuces, they can be tight. See, we got them pretty tight in there. For things like broccoli, cauliflower, I would absolutely give them more space, and each tag will tell you the space that they need. They all vary by how big they're going to get.
Do you need to add anything? I mean, we talked about some of the additives you put in initially, but do you ever need to add anything like perlite or vermiculite to help with drainage or anything else?
Not for the ground. And usually the products you use for container and raised bed already have that added. Now, if the ground is not a very well drained area, you want to add extra compost.
And if you're adding soil or compost to, say, existing perennial veggies, can you just do that on top, or there's certain considerations you need to
want to turn it in?
Turn it in.
Turn it
How
in.
far? Like the top third, or?
Because while you're planting, you just need to be where the root system's going to be. You don't have to go 2 feet down if the roots don't go 2 feet down.
Excellent. Can you talk about yes, well, both potatoes and tomatoes, whichever you want to tackle first.
Well, we'll do the potatoes since that's for now growing. Potatoes, they do not like lime. Do not put lime in the ground where you're growing potatoes. You want to make sure you have 2 or 3 eyes. See these little bumps? Those are eyes. So you can cut this one in half. You've got eyes on one end and eyes on the other. Now, after you've cut it, you need to let it scab over. I typically do it as an overnight scab over before it goes into the soil. They can be grown in the ground. I've grown them very, very happily grown them in containers. When my daughter was young, she just loved it. She called it treasure hunting when it was time to get the potatoes. We would put a tarp out in the driveway, we'd turn it out, and she would just go hunting for the treasure potatoes. It was a great thing to do for her when she was young. Well, she's 33 now and she's still fun. My grandson is now at the age that we're going to start doing this again.
Fun. How about?
You make them scab over first.
Oh, and how do you do that?
When you make the cut, you let them scab over overnight. You can have them scab over, 2 to 3 days if you want to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Talk about potatoes?
Well, yeah, specifically the question that came up about it was, can you plant them in the same soil or in the same place every year?
No. Tomatoes have to be crop rotated. And I'm glad that question was asked because cabbage has to be crop rotated as well. They're very hard on the soil. tomatoes can also cause bacteria, bad bacteria. So you want to make sure you rotate your crops.
And if you maybe didn't harvest something last year, like a root veggie, is it okay to just let it keep going and see what happens? Yeah.
Root veggies are biennial, which means they're going to make sure you leave some in the ground. Because of that, they're going to, in the next season, bloom and go to seed for your next season's crop. So you want to make sure with those, you're planting some that you can eat with the root vegetables and some that will stay there.
And how long, somebody asked specifically about artichokes, how long do some of these perennial veggies take before they actually start producing where you can harvest?
Depends on the age that you're buying. The green globe, this is a green globe artichoke. I think it's about its 5th year that it starts to really produce a decent globe. They grow fast. They are a bit spiky. And you want to make sure with them that you're not letting it go too far. Otherwise, you're going to have that artichoke is the bud to the flower. It's going to open up and become a flower. Then you won't have that yumminess.
Would you treat onions the same as potatoes in terms of planting them?
For planting onions, you don't have to do any kind of cutting or looking for eyes. You just put the bulb or the set into the soil. I like to go, depending on the size of the bulb of the onion, I'll go maybe an inch down. I like to see my onions start to grow. I like to have a little bit of it surface so I can keep up on how big they're getting.
Jumping back a little bit, that artichoke that you just held up that we carry here in the store, how old is that?
That one's about 3 years.
Gotcha.
2 to 3 years, 2 to 3 years.
And back to the tomato question. So how long before you can come back to the same place with the tomatoes? Sorry, you might have already answered this.
Usually it's every other year.
Okay.
Yeah, you just need to switch back and forth.
Okay. So we have a lot of questions back to the watering questions. Do you recommend like a drip irrigation system or soaker hoses versus sprinkler? What's your preferred method of watering?
You know, depending on what you're growing, I would recommend the ground watering rather than overhead watering. You can cause a lot of powdery mildew issues, especially in the warmer veggie season where there's cucumbers and there's squashes. Those get mildew so quickly.
Speaking of mildew, somebody asked specifically about zucchini. Can you grow those vertically, or other veggies that seem to be prone to mildew? Can you grow them vertically to help prevent some of that?
Do you mean like have them reach up into a trellis kind of vertically?
Sure.
Yeah, you can absolutely grow them that way. Same with the cucumbers. The Market More cucumber is a great one for that and produces heavily. What I do with those, and again, these are warm weather, these are not cool weather, so they haven't happened yet. What I would do with those is, and an old grower taught me this about 20 years ago. He would have a big bin of copper mixed up, and he would take the 4-inch plant, put his fingers over the top so the soil stays in, and the plant would be through it. So the plant would be here, the pot would be here, and he would dunk it in that. And that would like give it a head start on preventing the mildew. And then, so I started doing that with my own garden. And then I do a pre-spray with copper until we start seeing flowers set.
Interesting. Can you grow vertically if you are short on space, kind of like you did in that container?
Absolutely. That's a great way. Anything you can grow vertically, or anything that you can stack the platforms to put things on. It all works.
And they'll turn out just as good, I mean, just as large and healthy as if they were in the ground?
Absolutely.
Cool. Yep. Love that. Space is small these days for most of us.
Look in my driveway, I've got tabletop veggies, I've got platform veggies. Yeah, I've got them on different levels so that I can grow more.
Love that. Somebody asked about Japanese shiso. Is that a cool season veggie?
Shizu's going to come in the warmer season.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And I do carry both green and red.
Somebody is asking about garlic cloves. Can you use the seed pods again to reuse to plant with, to propagate with, or?
Absolutely. If it's one that's from the store, you would have to make sure they didn't dust it. A lot of these growers dust them before they come to the grocery store so they don't sprout on the shelves. They have a longer shelf life. Things like the ones that we bring in, of course, these will sprout. And you want to take that clove apart, and each single piece is going to be what's going to grow the next form or bowl.
And then perhaps the last question, no promises, but we're getting down to the end. Somebody asked common issues that you have with beets and maybe why they aren't producing as heavily as they feel like they should be. Do you have any common issues?
First thing I would ask with any issue is, how did you treat your soil? And most people are going to say, what do you mean? So make sure you go follow all the steps I talked about to make a good, healthy soil. If it's lacking nutrients, the plant's just not going to perform well for you. You need those nutrients.
Gotcha. One popped up about when do you know that it's time to harvest things? This question was specifically about cucumbers and preventing them from getting kind of slimy. Do you have tips?
Well, for example, with a cucumber, again, depending on which kind, because they vary in size and style of growth, I'm going to use the Market More for an example, because that's the one I grow and love to death. You don't want that one getting too big. So too big would be like this and this big around. Then you're just going to have nothing but seeds inside. So I pick them at about this size, not this size. So, and each one will tell you how big that maturity is. So kind of keep an eye on that.
Okay. If somebody missed harvesting their garlic last year and now it's kind of growing in bunches, can they use it like that? Do they need to thin it out?
Well, if it's too crowded, then it won't continue naturalizing. So yes, you'd need to thin it out. So it depends on how crowded it is, but definitely go ahead and use it.
Okay. There's a question about ladybugs. Can you use those for pest control?
You can, but ladybugs need to always have the pest there or they leave. So it's whether you want to always have pests there or always introduce the ladybug to the pest. But once the pests are gone, they're gone. They're going to find more pests.
Good to know. There's a question about successive planting in a container. Do you need to add those nutrients in that fertilizer the way we did in the beginning? Do you need to do that every time you put a new crop in?
You froze up.
Oh, can you see me now?
I don't see you, but I hear you.
You hear me? Okay.
Yeah. You've got the questions in front of your face.
Oh, that's just a quick poll. I'll take it down in just a second. So as long as you can hear me, we're good.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, good. So successive planting in a container, do you need to add fertilizer and nutrients every time you put a different crop in?
Absolutely. Again, with the container, I prefer adding new soil. That's just the OCD in me. Just because I don't want other bad bacteria in there to possibly be still in there. But you do always, with container planting, like in the ground or in raised beds, you still need to add the nutrients every single year. The plants need the nutrients, and the previous year's harvest will have depleted that.
We talked a little bit about the difference between growing in the ground and raised beds, but do you ever need to be concerned about the temperature of things, since raised beds, are obviously up out of the grounds, they might get a little bit warmer? Is that anything you should worry about?
You absolutely do, especially with the cool weather. Again, if it's in an area where the sun's going to beat down on it, it is a hard surface exposed where your roots will also be exposed, and that will heat up the ground more. Compost will naturally hold heat in, and if you've got a raised bed wall radiating the extra hot heat, then that is definitely going to add to that. So again, it depends on what it is too.
We've had lots of questions about what do you do with old soil? Perhaps you didn't plant something in it for a little while, or, you know.
Not old soil that got used already, but just like a bag of soil?
Maybe talk about both, because it wasn't really differentiated.
Well, again, old soil. And remember, when you're doing container gardening, you've got a lot of roots in there from the previous crop. So again, I always like to refresh the soil. But you always remind me the question.
Old soil. I love it.
So again, old soil is what it is, old soil. You need to add the nutrients. But keep in mind, if it is a container thing, there's going to be roots still in that old soil. That's not a good thing.
So I think we've tried to get everybody's questions, but you know, questions come up all the time, especially when you're out in the garden and you're starting to do all of this for yourself. We're always here as a resource and just to talk about it. So if you have any questions that pop up later, we're always here and happy to help. Shoot us an email, sunnyside.nursery@msn.com. Visit our website. You can get our phone number off of there. We love to talk plants. We're plant nerds, so we'll take any
yes,
questions and discussions. We love to talk about them. And you know, this video is being recorded, so you can go back, watch it again, write down some of the names of the products she mentioned in the beginning or at the end for bugs and pests. It'll be up on our website later today or up on our YouTube channel. It makes it nice and easy so that it'll notify you. We also have discounts attached to this class. Since you attended today, you can go ahead and stop by the store starting today through next Friday. We'll have 20% off of our veggie starts, as well as the EB Stone organic tomato and vegetable food that Holly talked about today. And then we're also doing some of the soils that you see behind her, the soil booster, as well as the raised bed mix, the orange and the red bags. Those are going to be buy 3 get 1 free for the next week. So come down, grab some vegetable starts, talk with us about plants, get a good discount. And we'll have another class again tomorrow. Trevor's going to be talking about weed control tomorrow at 11 Pacific time. So hopefully you can join us for that. Thanks so much for spending your morning with us, and we hope to see you around the nursery and see you back for some of our classes.
Thank you. Bye-bye.